So we see a lot of who, where, what, how much money they might spend, but rarely why. And I think the why someone buys, the problem they're trying to solve, and why they buy the product is vital. And so keep that in mind as we go through today's session. The why consumers buy is really, really important. So that reminds me of my time at a company called Megafood. I was there for about 8 years as the CEO at Megafood. And so I wanted to give you some examples of what I like to look for in terms of the consumer depth of information. So we had a woman that we had identified through some pretty major market research with Pure Branding, who you're going to meet today. Yadim Mador and his team helped us out when I was at Megafood. They actually helped us out twice, which we'll talk about. But we called her Vibrant Vanessa. Much like Lee, I mentioned earlier, we had a persona on Vibrant Vanessa, and I thought I would go through some detail and show you how deep we went on understanding Vanessa at Megafood. It was pretty powerful. So she said things like nutrition and happiness are absolutely linked to health. Good in, good out. And we actually had a artist caregiver type archetype that we really went deep on with her. I take what I need when I need it because staying healthy is really important to me. We actually wrote a script of who she was based on all the research and the data that we found out from her. And we went deep on brand attribute preferences, for example, why they buy from certain brands and what they're looking for in brands. Things like transparency came up. And what's really interesting is price never came up. And it was on the list. But for our consumer, the word price never came up, which wouldn't you like to know that if you're running a brand? Wouldn't you like to know that price isn't that important to that particular consumer segment? So shopping habits, where does she shop? Channels, usage per day. She was one of the higher usage per day. How she thought about health, who they used whole food vitamins, her spending per month, and we'll see that she's actually at the high end of spending. A snapshot of where she is influenced. Interactions with vitamins. She sees vitamins as routine. She's also a researcher and experimenter, but those are secondary to the routine piece of this. And this was a great chart here. Personality traits compared with general population. You can see where Vanessa over-indexed and where she under-indexed. And she under-indexed on facts. She wasn't necessarily looking for facts around supplements. What she was looking for was intuitive. She over-indexed on intuitive. She over-indexed on things like laugh a lot and spirituality and committed to high ideals. So you can see how this would really help drive a brand's marketing and help drive a brand's language and the message you might use to your target consumer. I can tell you that all of this was invaluable in terms of how we marketed to Vanessa. Also invaluable was we actually did personas on 5 or 6 different types of ladies, primarily ladies at the time, and we were able to narrow it down to 3 or 4 that kind of overlapped with Vanessa. And you can see here we have alternative Ava, laid back Leah, conservative Constance, and we were able to compare them in terms of usage. So alternative Ava was also heavy usage, but spent less per month, and laid back Leah used less and spent a little less, but she was really the future for our brand. So we went deep on all these personas and we're able to really compare them in a deep way and see where they played in the marketplace and also the brand attributes that they were looking for. And you can see some overlap here, and then you can see some places where there is no overlap. And so you can the brand attribute preference was just gigantic in terms of one of the brand attributes was really passionate about health and wellness, right? And they wanted a brand that they could really relate to that was really passionate and kind of over the top, transparent, that kind of thing. So in the end, after all this research that we went deep on all these, we were able to really hone in on Vanessa and then recognize with the right language we could speak to Ava and Leah and broaden out and actually do market sizing on each of these different areas, which made it much easier for us to project our growth. When you can put market sizing on the different targets that you might have, that's when it becomes really, really powerful. Because you may think you know your consumer in a deep way, but when you take that extra step to understand why they buy, and then that even extra step to say, how many people buy because of that, it really goes a long way.